Hey guys and girls, Poketin King here, back with another Flesh and Blood video. It's been a couple of weeks now since I've done a video in this kind of format. I had a couple of videos where I was doing the screen share videos, and obviously we've had the podcast coming up, but I've not really made a whole bunch of content over the last couple of weeks. I know I took a little bit of a break, and I know I said I'd be trying to get more content out, but the business has been picking up recently, so a lot of time has been put into that. Over the weekend, I was at London Card Show, which was the UK biggest card show. It had over 5,000 people attend across the 2 days, as well as hundreds of vendors as well. So I attended, as a guest on the Saturday, and then I vendored on the Sunday. So I kind of got a gist of what both sides looked like. I've been at the card show before, but never vendored. And the aim was here really to kind of bring Flesh and Blood to the card show, because I know previously that I had struggled to find very little, if any, at all over the previous card shows that I've been to. So this is kind of the topic of the video, actually. I kind of wanted to talk about my thoughts and feelings towards where the UK scene is. Obviously, this is not going to be kind of representative of the American market or kind of what it's like in the US. If you go to card shows in the US, let me know in the comments below. Do you see Flesh and Blood there? But I'm going to kind of talk about what happened over the course of the weekend and kind of the feelings I've had towards Flesh and Blood over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, I suppose, really. So the first time I kind of had the idea of wanting to bring Flesh and Blood was back in February, when I went to London Card Show and I saw half a booster box of Everfest, and that was it. And I was a little bit disappointed to not see more. Obviously, every other card game is represented at the card show. I mean, we have card games that, there was more chaotic there. There was more of so many different card games that died like 10, 15, 20 years ago. Like, you could find every card game imaginable there. And of course, all of the current imprint card games. But out of all of the imprint card games, Flesh and Blood has been the least represented there. And that kind of worried me a little bit. I know Flesh and Blood is kind of in a state at the moment where it is pretty much a player base. There's very little collectors and investors, especially in the UK and Europe. Obviously, if you are an investor collector and you are in the UK and Europe, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying it's very little. I know quite a lot of collectors across Europe and US, but compared to the US, it's nothing really. And compared to the markets in Asia now that are kind of dominating, it's very little. And that is proven by the lack of representation at card shows by Flesh and Blood. If people wanted it, they'd stock it more maybe. So I vendored, and I actually had Flesh and Blood. I had Outsiders, Dusk Till Dawn, and Crucible of War. And I was kind of talking to people a little about kind of what Flesh and Blood is, how it started, how I got into it, and kind of my passion towards Flesh and Blood. And some people were generally interested. I think a lot of people that were interested were people that know me on Instagram, on YouTube, and have seen my posts and gone, this might be a good time to kind of have a look at Flesh and Blood. A lot of people picked up a pack or two, opened it, kind of saw that, is this something for them? And I was quite surprised and pleased coming out of it that there was quite a few people that were kind of excited to kind of get involved, have a little look at, and kind of see what Flesh and Blood is all about. And I think that's the key here, right? Flesh and Blood and LSS aren't really at events. They've spoken about it previously, how they plan to possibly do it in the future, but I think a big thing here is exposure, right? Flesh and Blood isn't at big box stores. It's local card game stores, right? And that is absolutely fine across America when you've got hundreds of card stores. But in the UK, for instance, where there isn't that many, and a lot of card stores are always closing here. A lot of the card stores I know don't even stock Flesh and Blood. So thankfully, one of my LGSs do stock Flesh and Blood. And that's been really kind of vital in my sort of journey with Flesh and Blood, in terms of like collecting and sort of getting now more recently back into playing. But there isn't a massive representation in the UK. So we had the Birmingham Call in a couple of weeks ago. I believe 600 people attended that. And that's absolutely fantastic. That's really great to see that there are people still really actively playing here. And I am in the Discords, and there might be some people watching this video that are from the Discord. And I appreciate the support there's been a lot of support from the UK community, and I just really grateful for that, because it kind of does help when making content. But there's also a lot of people in the community that are kind of blindsided. They're very they've got their eyes in the clouds, honestly, and they think that they play Flesh and Blood. I don't know. It depends how much money really they spend on it. The average player, for the most part, once they've got their money in the game, they've got all their equipment and stuff like that. They generally aren't the ones that are buying cases on cases of every single set coming out. And the model here for Flesh and Blood is to sell boxes, right? Every set gets boxes. We don't get tins and blisters and elite training boxes or bundles or fat packs or anything like that other card games do. We generally get boxes and we get blitz decks, and that is it. So there isn't a massive variety of products, and I think that is also, that's a good thing and a bad thing, but I would like to see a kind of bundle sort of product to come out for, Flesh and Blood. That would be something kind of different and nice. We already have the Dragon Shield sleeves anyway, so, it wouldn't be too difficult to kind of incorporate those into the bundles, then just have a promo, maybe some tokens and stuff like that. But, I think Flesh and Blood is in a state at the moment where it's a little bit stagnant, honestly. And I'm in a lot of Discords and a lot of Facebook groups for Flesh and Blood, not just in the UK, but in Europe, in US, in Asia. And there is certain markets that are growing, but over the course of all of the markets in general, I think it seems to be quite stagnant, and a lot of card games are in that kind of that position right now, because the markets generally in the summer are not the strongest, honestly. But the problem we have is the faith in the card game. We had a lot of people enter from other card games, and are they staying? I know I always get people saying, I've sold my Magic the Gathering collection, I've got into Flesh and Blood, I'm getting into Pokemon, but you have all these card games like Sorcery coming out, you have Lorcana coming out. My worry is that people will leave to go to those card games, and they probably won't come back to Flesh and Blood, honestly. One of the reasons why I think is it's a very competitive game. It's not a casual game at all. So that already from a player base, like I've had people say to me, they tried Flesh and Blood and they just couldn't really get into it. It was too difficult. The entry level was too high. And they've played other card games. They play other card games. And that kind of worries me a little bit. And then from a collector's side, I think, the lack of exposure is a massive thing. If you're not, when you go into these card shows, right, you're looking at the different card games. I've picked up multiple card games. I've collected and invested, in multiple card games that I've seen when I've gone out to card shows, or I've gone out to stores and go, oh, that looks good. That looks quite interesting. Again, if you don't have friends that are playing or collecting Flesh and Blood, and you're not watching content creators that are doing Flesh and Blood content, how else are you going to see it, right? You're not going to go into a Target or a Walmart. You're not going to go to a card show and kind of see these games, because they're not there. And that's kind of what I'm going to hope to do within the UK, is bring Flesh and Blood to as many card shows as I can attend. Obviously, we set up the business RatheTavernCards back in April, and we are, on our third, 4th-month trading right now. Things are pretty good. I'm on Cardmarket now. Coda A4 is my Cardmarket name. I've had it since like 2015, and I can't change the username. I've emailed them, but it doesn't actually let you do it on the website. So I wanted to kind of change that. But I will be having a lot of singles over the course of the next couple of weeks to months. I've already got about 500 on there. But I'm buying up a lot of collections now of collectors that are kind of getting out of Flesh and Blood, and I'll be listing all those singles. Generally, I generally list everything 10% less than Cardmarket low, honestly. And, just to kind of get the sale and also build up the kind of reputation on there, which I don't have, as I do have on like Discord and the Facebook groups and Instagram and etc. But yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done, honestly. And I think anybody, I've had people in the comments below tell me that Flesh and Blood is stagnant and is not growing. Look, Dusk Till Dawn was a great set. Obviously, it can't support every hero like some supplemental sets have before. Like, it's just not possible now, right? But Dusk Till Dawn was an amazing set. A lot of the single prices are kind of sort of sorting themselves out now. A lot of the high prices have come down, and a lot of some of the cards, the Majestics, are starting to go up now, which I've kind of seen trends on, which I might do a video on, honestly. Now I'm kind of got my eye on the market for modern sets a little bit more now, where I'm listing up singles. I was quite surprised to see quite a few Majestics in Dusk Till Dawn worth, sort of 8 to 20 euros or pounds even. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, if you're ever at any, card shows, I'm going to try in the UK, I'm going to try bring Flesh and Blood there, at least a couple of sets. I gave some packs out to kind of see if people were interested. The paper packs seem to be quite something that people are excited about. So that's generally something that maybe we should be pushing a little bit more. Something that other card games just generally aren't doing. The box art as well is something that attracts people. But unfortunately, without the exposure, this game is going to struggle, I think, with so many card games coming out. And, there are going to be people that don't want to hear that, honestly. But, the game needs to grow, right, to continue and to survive. I think the game, has survived probably the hardest times that a lot of games generally go through, with the pandemic and stuff, and people couldn't actually play. A lot of the investors and collectors that are probably in it for the wrong reasons have left. And you generally do have some core collectors and investors, right? Players are extremely important. The player base doesn't seem to be growing that much in the UK, and the collector and investor base definitely isn't. So that's kind of my thoughts a little bit onto it. Obviously, I'd love to see comments below about people in other areas of the world. What's your thoughts on Flesh and Blood? Maybe I'll do a collab with, like Ridderman Gaming with Josh and kind of talk about how it is in the US. Because I know he's kind of a lot more involved in playing now than when we sort of recorded our last video together. So that'll be quite interesting. But let me know your thoughts, comments below. Check out all the socials, RatheTavernCards on Instagram, Poketin King as always. Check out the website. So much more is planned. I'll be doing so many card shows next year. So if you are in the UK and you're interested in Flesh and Blood, or you're watching this and you're already collecting or playing or whatever, I'm going to try to get out there as much as I can. Be bringing binders of singles. I'll try bring some decks, and we'll kind of see how the game can go from there. But thanks all for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe as always, and have a great day.